Here's a question from Angela, and it's about preventing getting a softball-sized bruise every time she gets stung, and sounds like she's ready to give up. Bee stings are an uncomfortable reality of keeping bees, and most beekeepers at some point will probably get stung, but no one wants to get stung, and it's something that you can certainly avoid as much as possible, especially when you're a beginner. If you're someone that's kept bees for a long time, someone like me, I've had bees for many years, the bee stings don't really bother you anymore. You kind of get used to them. And I don't know if it's that you're gaining immunity to them or not. I really don't know, because sometimes I'll get a sting and it really swells up. So part of it is you just kind of get used to it. It's no longer that shocking anymore. But one of the things that I see people do is when a bee stings them, the bee leaves the stinger behind. And the typical reaction is to try and get that stinger out as quickly as possible. So you got a stinger in your hand and you go there and you pinch it and you pull it out. Well, when you pinch it, you're squeezing all that additional venom from the stinger into your body. So what you need to do to avoid getting that additional venom into your body is take your hive tool or take a fingernail. I don't have fingernails, so I just take my hive tool and just scrape off the stinger. And that's going to prevent a lot of additional venom from flowing into your body. So that's certainly a way of preventing the swelling from increasing. Of course, it's a good idea to get a bee jacket or a bee suit. A bee suit is probably the best way. Now, sometimes you may end up still getting a stinger through, somehow through the bee suit, but most of the time you avoid that, especially some of the triple layered vented bee suits. That can prevent most of them. Now, sometimes if the veil isn't on properly, you'll get a bee climbing up under the veil, or if you have a suit that has a veil on it, maybe it wasn't velcroed on correctly or something like that. So there's always still a chance of getting a stinger. And then you can also wear gloves. You can put some goatskin gloves on, some thin leather gloves that still give you movement in your hands without constricting them too much. So all of those can prevent most of the stings from happening. A lot of people, like myself, I don't like wearing gloves. I take the risk of getting stung over wearing gloves, and gloves to me are kind of cumbersome. I like having my fingers to pick up frames and move things. And I think for myself, it helps me to be a more careful beekeeper, where I'm not crushing bees. I don't put my fingers on top of bees and squish them, as an example. I'm a lot more careful because I run the potential of getting stung. And I also don't always wear a bee suit, or I don't have a bee suit, but I do have a bee jacket. But a lot of times I'll go there in shorts and a t-shirt, and I do get stung doing that. But I think when you're a little less careful of it in terms of protective gear, you're more in tune with the bees. You're more careful in how you move, as an example. You don't want to make sudden movements that will attract them and they will sting you. If you make gentle movements, slow movements, smooth movements, they're a lot less likely to attack you. And when you first take the cover off the hive, just give them a few seconds to kind of acclimate to the sunlight before moving. So take the cover off, let them kind of see what's going on, and then start putting your hands in to take the frames out or whatever you're going to do. So that's another way of preventing it. But even if you're careful, you always run the risk of potentially some bee getting mad and stinging you. And then when they do, it lets off a pheromone, and the other bees smell that, and they all want to go and sting the intruder. So you can get a pile on pretty quickly if you get stung and you don't take the stinger out and then put some smoke on it. Mentioning smoke, that is of course another way of reducing the aggressive behavior. Lift up the cover a little bit, smoke them, put the cover back on, let the smoke settle. You can take the inner cover up, hit it with some smoke. Sometimes there are bees on top of the inner cover, so you can just lift the top cover up, hit it with some smoke, put the top cover back down, let it sit there for 10 seconds, take the top cover off, set it aside, then take the inner cover, lift the inner cover up, hit it with some smoke, set it down for 10 seconds or so. Then remove it, set that aside, give them a few seconds to acclimate to all that light that's just blasting into their hive out of a sudden, and then start working with them. But when you're starting out, I would definitely use smoke, I would use a bee suit, I would definitely use a veil, and I would use gloves. And get used to working with them that way before you try anything else. Especially when you're starting out, if you want to continue doing beekeeping, it's a good idea to avoid getting stung, because it can reduce the likelihood of you wanting to continue in the hobby. And I think it's a hobby that is definitely worth pursuing farther. Usually the first year can be a little frustrating. You might lose your bees swarming, you might lose your bees over the winter, they might have mite problems, and you might start getting stung a lot if you're not careful. So all of those reduce the likelihood that you'll continue in beekeeping. And I want to see all these beginner beekeepers continue in the hobby, because it's not only a great hobby, but it's helping save the bees. It's helping keep pollinators around. So I love new backyard beekeepers, new hobby beekeepers coming into the beekeeping community. And I want to see as many of you as possible continue to do so. So let me know your thoughts on this. Comment below. Please like this video. It really helps with YouTube's algorithm on what videos get placed high in search results when people are searching for beekeeping. And please subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be doing a lot of Q&A type videos like this. I'm also going to be taking the camera out to the bee yard and doing videos as I'm inspecting the hives and that kind of thing. If you subscribe to the channel and you hit the bell notification, whenever I upload a video, you're going to get a notification. So I would encourage you to do that.